Justice Antonin Scalia died over the weekend. Now, President Obama has 10 months left in his term. Obviously, according to the Constitution, he needs to fill that vacancy, and then the Senate needs to consent and advise on that. So the Republicans are immediately saying, hell no, no way. We're not going to let you pick a nominee. But wait a minute, that's what the Constitution says. We don't care. We're not going to let you pick one even though you're the president. Now, there was this funny exchange during the debate on Saturday between Ted Cruz and the moderator, John Dickerson. Let's watch that first.
So, Senator Cruz, the Constitution says the president shall appoint with advice and consent from the Senate, just to clear that up. So he has the constitutional power. But you don't think he should. Where do you set that date if you're president? Does it begin in election year, in December, November, September? And once you set the date, when you're president, will you abide by that date?
Well, we have 80 years of precedent of not confirming Supreme Court justices in an election year. And let me say, Justice Scalia...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Were any appointed in an election year? Or is that just there were 80 years?
80 years of not confirming. For example, LBJ nominated Abe Fortas. Fortas did not get confirmed. He was defeated.
But Kennedy was confirmed in 88.
No, Kennedy was confirmed in 87.
He was appointed in 87.
He was appointed
in 88. That's the question. Is it appointing or confirming? What's the difference?
In this case, it's both. But if I could answer the question.
Sorry, I just want to get the facts straight for the audience. I apologize.
That's awesome. They booed the facts at a Republican debate. And of course, we double-checked, even though it was obvious. Yes, Justice Kennedy, who is nominated from Ronald Reagan, is a Republican, is the fifth vote on that keeps voting in the conservative direction, certainly lately. He was, in fact, confirmed in 1988, an election year. So that talking point they're giving you is total nonsense. Other than Kennedy, almost no one else was ever in a situation to be nominated in an election year, so that's just random. And in Kennedy's case, yes, he was in an election year, and yes, he was confirmed. We'll get to how he was confirmed in a second, because that's awesome. I like the head shake in the beginning, though, too. They're like, the Constitution says the president has the right to nominate, right? And Cruz like, and then they say, of course, part of the question that was never answered is, so will you give up your fourth year where you won't nominate any justices if an opening arises? Oh, you won't, right? You won't, right? Or will you get on the record and say, oh, my fourth year doesn't count? Of course you're not going to do that, because that's a preposterous thing to say. Now, all the Republicans are running with this talking point, 80 years, never happened, even though it did happen. Senator Chuck Grassley's among those guys. He says, the fact of the matter is that it's been standard practice over the last 80 years to not confirm Supreme Court nominees during a presidential election year. Huffington Post follows up with, but Grassley, too, voted to confirm Kennedy under Reagan. So Chuck Grassley, still in the Senate, old-timer, he voted for the confirmation in a presidential year. Now turns around and says, I don't know what you're talking about. Never happened. Not only did it happen, you voted for it, jackass. Okay, now, let me give you more facts here. On average, it takes the Senate a little over 2 months to bring a Supreme Court nominee up for a vote. So that's the normal, and obviously Obama's got about 10 months, so that would be way outside of normal if they blocked it for that long. Since 1975, the average number of days from the nomination of a Supreme Court justice to a final Senate vote is 67, just 67 days. Now, the longest Supreme Court nominee has ever been blocked is 125 days. How many days does President Obama have left in his presidency? 340 days. So, if the Republicans are successful in blocking this nominee for as long as they intend to, well, then they will have nearly tripled the record for the previous obstruction. So these guys, they're always, and the media goes along with them. I can't get anything done in Washington. It's gridlock. You know, Republicans say it's the Democrats' fault. Democrats say it's the Republicans' fault. I guess we'll never know. No, we do know. They're going to triple the rate of obstruction. And that's not the Democrats. That's the Republicans. And that's a fact. But the media will later call it even. Well, I don't know. Do you remember who obstructed Obama's nominee? I can't remember. I don't know. Right? Yeah, no, it's the Republicans. They're going to break another record for obstruction. Okay. Now, Mitch McConnell says, and he's, of course, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, and hence very relevant to all of this. He gets to decide if they're even going to have hearings. He says the American people should have a voice in the selection of their next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. Okay, now here we go again. In 1988, Mitch McConnell voted to confirm a Supreme Court nominee when it was a Republican president's final year in office. So on February 3rd, 1988, McConnell and literally every other GOP senator voted to confirm Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. Now, this was during President Ronald Reagan's last year in the White House and at a time when Democrats controlled the Senate. Kennedy was confirmed 97-0. So let's review. Now, the Democrats did block earlier nominees, including a huge fight over Robert Bork. But then Kennedy is nominated, and the confirmation hearings happen in an election year. Not only do all the Republicans vote for Kennedy, all of the Democrats vote for Kennedy. And that happened during an election year. Now the Republicans turn around and go, election year, no way. But this is what I'm talking about. It's an uneven playing field. Democrats go, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. Election year, no problem, sir. 97-0, sir. Of course, sir. The Republicans go, no way, man, I'm not going to give you a single vote. I'm not even going to give you a hearing. I'm not even going to give you a vote. Okay. I'm not done yet. Mitch McConnell, at the time, or earlier in his career, had said that blocking Supreme Court nominees is outrageous. This was actually in the 2000s. He said the Constitution of the United States is at stake. Article 2, Section 2 clearly provides that the President and the President alone nominates judges. The Senate is empowered to give advice and consent. How about, what was that again about the President and President alone? Okay, but my Democratic colleagues want to change the rules. They want to reinterpret the Constitution to require a supermajority for confirmation. In effect, they would take away the power to nominate from the President and grant it to a minority of 41 senators. That's outrageous, right? Exactly what Mitch McConnell is proposing to do now. Now, he has more than 41 senators. The Republicans are in the majority, but they don't even want a hearing on it. They want to strip that power away from the President. Exactly what Mitch McConnell was complaining about when we had a Republican president. Okay. Finally, he continues with this line of attack. The Republican conference intends to restore the principle that regardless of party, any president's judicial nominees, after full debate, deserve a simple up or down vote. Mitch, where are you? Mitch, please, give me an up or down vote. Okay? Now, of course, he says no such thing. And he said back then, for the first time in 214 years, they have changed the Senate's advise and consent responsibilities to advise and obstruct. And now Mitch McConnell thinks, yeah, awesome, advise and obstruct. When you guys were doing even this small percentage of it, we were roaring like lions. Now that we plan to do it, so what? Sad day for you. Elizabeth Warren had a very good response to this. She said, McConnell is right that the American people should have a voice in the selection of the next Supreme Court justice. In fact, they did, when President Obama won the 2012 election by 5 million votes. You see, it doesn't say in the Constitution that the president serves for 3 years. It says he serves for 4 years. Sorry. Read the Constitution. All those guys with their don't tread on me flags and Constitution, man, Constitution. It's in the Constitution. The president selects and you guys vote on it. Go ahead, have a debate on it, have the confirmation hearings, and then you get a simple up or down vote. Where are you, Republicans? And where are the presidential candidates? Now, I have 1,000 of these quotes from Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, everybody else, but Marco Rubio's is perfectly representative. Let's show you.
Oh, he most certainly has the power to nominate someone. The Senate's already said it. Mitch McConnell last night was very clear. We are not moving forward on the Supreme Court nominee until after this election. And one of the reasons why is this president is no longer, he's now at the end. If this was early in his second term, that's one thing, but he now has less than a year left in office. The president can nominate whoever he wants, but the Senate's not going to act, and that's pretty clear. So we can be debating it, but we're not moving forward on it, period.
But Ronald Reagan named Anthony Kennedy to the Supreme Court in November of his 7th year, and Kennedy was actually confirmed in Reagan's 8th year. So are you saying somehow that November is okay, but 3 months later is over the line?
Yeah, again, I mean, it doesn't really matter what they've done. Reagan did back in '87. It was in '87 when he nominated him, and so obviously it was still earlier in the year. So I think the president should allow the next president to appoint the justice to the Supreme Court, and if it's me, and I anticipate that it will be, I'm going to look for someone in the mold of Justice Scalia who, while irreplaceable, I think is a model jurist and one of the great jurists in American history.
See, that's the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan. Marco Rubio in the last debate mentioned his name at least a dozen times. Now he turns around and says, I don't give a damn what Ronald Reagan did. Okay? No, I'm going to obstruct. I don't care what the Constitution says. I don't care what the laws say. We're not going to give the guy a vote. Okay, fine. But I don't want anybody in the media then coming back and telling me, obstruction, well, I can't tell who's at fault. Gridlock, I can't tell who's at fault. They're obviously at fault. Call it like it is. It is bias to call it even when it isn't even. One party is clearly the obstruction party. They don't want any laws passed. They don't want any regulations passed. And when there's a Democratic president, they don't want anything to get done, including new Supreme Court justices. That's a fact.